Go ahead.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become Shining Light Parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who've passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us this evening. It's going to be a great night. Thank you.
Yes, we are thrilled to have both Dr. Linda and Dr. Earl Bachman with us this evening. And I know that if you've been with us before, the discussions that we have with them are amazing. We're also thrilled that they will be at the conference with us this year. And I'm going to read very short bios for both of them so that you know a little bit more about them. Featured on Coast to Coast AM and Gaia TV, Dr. Linda Backman is an expert teacher, regression therapist, and licensed psychologist with 45 years of private practice experience, including 30 years of guiding soul regressions. Linda was trained by soul regression pioneer Dr. Michael Newton, and they worked together training other therapists for 3 years. Linda has conducted thousands of past life and between lives soul regressions in person and remotely. Linda founded the RavenHeart Center and Training Institute in Boulder, Colorado in 1997 and teaches regularly worldwide. Linda's books are Soul Design, Souls on Earth, The Evolving Soul, and Bringing Your Soul to Light. She is an international expert in understanding how reincarnation plays a pivotal role in our personal growth and relationships. And she's joined tonight by her husband, Dr. Earl Bachman, who is a former university professor and administrator, trained mediator, and is skilled in conflict resolution, coaching, and consulting. He has held academic and administrative positions at universities in North Carolina and Arizona, following receipt of his Ph.D. in 1971 from the University of Oregon. He served as Dean of Social and Behavioral Sciences, as well as University Ombudsman for Northern Arizona University from 1984 to 1997. He has also worked with Dr. Linda Bachman, his spouse, in making several national presentations on couples therapy, as well as having worked with couples in former psychology practice. He is an author, a nationally known consultant, and he is trained in both past life and between lives soul regression, as well as in the application of shamanic practices, in addition to managing business aspects of the RavenHeart Center. He also consults with clients in the development and or expansion of their healing practice. Earl and Linda live in the Boulder, Colorado area. Their website is www.ravenheartcenter.com. I'll put that in the chat box. And without further ado, please join me and Irene in welcoming Drs. Earl and Linda Backman. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It is always a pleasure. We're always thrilled to be with all of you. And as some of you know, and I say this all the time when we join HPH, our best, all that bio stuff aside, the most important piece is that we too are shining light parents. And I say to people all the time, clients and that sort of thing, that, and I really mean this, that HPH is so meaningful because of what we all know when we talk about the afterlife. So I'm going to dive in, and when we planned to do this, we talked about this kind of big topic that we're going to try to narrow, which is a huge topic. What can our children teach us from the other side? What can we learn about our children and about the other side? Because that is the connection that we always have, and is unending. So today, I think that probably well, what I want to talk about is spiritual guides, and that's where I'm going to start. So I want you all to think about the fact that we always have spiritual guides, and you can call them guardian angels. Sorry, too much allergy stuff. Um, think about your spiritual guides like guardian angels, like a support system. So, one of our key guides when we're shining light parents, obviously, is our child or children, and um, they're communicating with us as much as they want us to communicate with them. So often when I'm preparing to guide a regression, one of the things I want to know from the client is how does their intuition work? So I'm going to talk a little bit about intuition because all of you either do or intend to hear guidance, hear direction, hear how your child is doing on the other side, hear what they're doing on the other side. So when you think about intuition, and some of you may be new to learning and focusing on how to connect with your intuition, and then there are probably others of you that we might say are old hat with intuition. So here are ways that intuition works, and learning to use our intuition is a little bit like, learning to ride a bike, or learning to expand your exercise, or using the treadmill for an extra 5 or 10 minutes. It's like strengthening a muscle. So when you think about intuition, um, think about all the ways we can be intuitive. So, one of the ways we often think we should be intuitive, and some of us are, and some of us aren't, is what, in fancy terms and beautiful French word, we call clairvoyance. And obviously, clairvoyance means that your intuitive guidance, your child showing up intuitively needs to be visual, like eyes open, eyes closed. There's almost like a screen running in your mind, and you're receiving pictures as a way to connect across the veil or to connect to what we might call the afterlife. Some of us are visual with our intuition, and some of us aren't. So if you've been working on talking to your child on the other side, and you think you have to see them in your mind's eye, that's not the only way that you're going to sense um, the impression, the indication that your son, your daughter, your children are wanting to communicate. So another symptom of intuition is you get a feeling. You suddenly have an emotion. It could be a twinge of sadness. It could be actually just the opposite. It could be almost a sense of joy. It could be almost anything. It can also be anxiety that we mistake as, oh, why am I anxious? And I shouldn't feel anxious. Sometimes when our child on the other side is working to connect, what we feel is anxiety because we're translating the energy of our child into anxiety. So think about that. If some of you feel like you experience anxiety and you think there's something wrong, it may have nothing to do with something wrong. It may have to do with basically when our child connects with us from the other side, they're using energy because that's how they get our attention. And it's not necessarily anxiety. So, pictures in your mind or clairvoyance, emotions that just kind of suddenly pop up, couple of other ways that you're going to sense that you're receiving communication. One is, and Earl could talk a lot about this because this happens for him a lot, it's a physical symptom. It's a twitching of an eyelid. It's a popping of your eardrum. It's you think maybe you're getting a headache. It's just kind of a mild pressure in your temple or something like that. It can be a physical indication, a tightening in your stomach, because the energy of your son or daughter is just affecting your body. So please don't mistake that as something's wrong with you physically. And then the last one, this is really common for me. At times when our child on the other side or when my spiritual guides are trying to get my attention, it's just a knowing. It's just um, a thought of, oh, I'm suddenly thinking about our child. I'm suddenly thinking about a message that our child or spiritual guides are trying to get across to me. So it's mental, and you think you're making it up, and in fact, you're not making it up. So I'm going to shift. Earl and I are going to do this back and forth. Earl, before I talk more about guides in general, do you want to add anything to all of
Well,
that?
on the communication side, I think what I've learned through the sessions I conduct is that you need to talk to the energy that you're feeling, whether that's your higher self, whether that is the energy of your child on the other side, whatever that the feeling you have is that there's nothing wrong with meditation. I think meditation is good for calming, but our guides want us to be active. And so if you literally, I've found, if you talk to the energy, ask about it, you'll get information back. It's that connection. And you don't have to be a medium or a psychic in order to connect with energy of loved ones on the other side. You can do that if you open yourself up. Yeah, I always recommend that people, when they have a conversation like this with their loved one, that they do it in private. Walking down the street makes people think that you're schizophrenic and maybe there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's really about the energy, as Linda said. When you speak, when you talk, you're embracing that energy that you're receiving, but you're sending energy to loved ones. And that connection across the veil opens you up to receiving information in the myriad of ways that Linda has just talked about. For some people, it's really cognitive, it's heady. I think some people it's a feeling. As Linda knows from her own experiences, sometimes it's a touch. And what's important is to embrace that. The more you have the communication and the more you know how the communication is coming to you from the other side, the more then you can increase that and you can learn to literally connect with that energy and understand it at a pretty deep level. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, what my guides, it's interesting. My guides sometime today suggested to me as I was thinking about, what would Earl and I talk with all of you about today? My guide suggested that I talk about um, that each of us has a team on the other side. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So I know this from guiding regression for so many years. And one of the key things I do when I'm guiding a regression for a client is I want that client to know who's part of their support team on the other side. So now, if I expand that to all of us as Shining Light parents, obviously, probably obvious to all of you, one of the members of your support team, and if I could ask each of you, but I'll answer the question myself, is our child on the other side. So one of, it may not be the only spiritual guide. In fact, probably our child on the other side or children on the other side are not our only support team. At the same time, our child on the other side is a member of a team of spiritual guides, a team of guardian angels. So there may be, yeah, I'll use some examples from my life and Earl's and my life. We know, actually, you guys might find this interesting. We know that our son who passed many years ago in 1972 and is on the other side is the soul, and we learned this not too long ago, actually, is the soul of one of my grandfathers. So this happens. So here's another kind of piece to maybe expand your awareness if you haven't thought about this. At times, your child on the other side is a soul that you've had other lives with. And so Earl and I know, excuse me, Earl and I know that our son Adam on the other side is the same soul as a grandparent of mine who passed before Adam was born and passed. And that may or may not be the case for all of you, but that does happen. Along with Adam being one of Earl's and my guides from the other side, we also have guides that we've had past lives with. So if you think about this, and for those of you that intuitively are already communicating across the veil with your child, you can always ask your child, well, who's on the team? Who's part of the support system of the team? And now, and I do this a lot when I'm talking to people, my guides, I never know exactly which ones. It could be Adam, it could be more than that. Just dropped in sort of a piece of information they want me to share. And I always find this kind of fun because I hadn't even thought about this. What I just heard in my head, so that knowing that I talked about, is that at times when our child on the other side is trying to get our attention, and yes, of course, and I'm not negating all of the amazing mediums that come and join HPH and come and help with readings for HPH. So please don't think I'm ignoring that. At the same time, we can communicate with our child ourselves. But what my guides just told me is that as your child on the other side is learning how to communicate across the veil to you, another guide that is not your child can easily assist your child. It's almost like expanding expanding the energy between the other side where our child is and us on this side of life, on the earth side of life. Another guide that may have more experience communicating across the veil can and will, that's what just dropped into my brain. I had never thought about that before. It's almost like expand the channel, so to speak. Expand the energy to allow your child to come through. So interesting to think about. So
If
Earl, you
you,
want to, yeah, go for it.
okay. A key to understanding what your child on the other side can teach you is to think about their life with you when they were in body. Focus on what do you think they came into your life because they chose you to teach you. Okay? Think about what lessons you learned when they were in body, when you held them, when you loved them, when you talked to them. Think about what did you learn from them? What did they teach you? If you focus in on that, it gives you a clue as to how they can teach you from the other side. Okay? Same soul energy, physical body, no physical body, but the same loving soul energy present in both places. So, as Linda has said, you can, once you get a feel, oh, I think my child is teaching me this from the other side. Because of what she said, you can connect and ask about that. Have a conversation. You have that energetic connection that allows you to ask questions. And then, as Linda says, pay attention to how that response comes back to you. How are you feeling it? Intuitive? A feeling? A knowing? A dream? Lots of souls on the other side communicate through dreams. And I think a lot of people aren't quite sure about that, but it's true because what happens when you go to sleep, that critical, doubting, sometimes mind is asleep, but your soul energy is alive. And so when you're asleep, the energy from those on the other side who guide you, who connect with you, your loved ones, guides to that loved one, can assist you with what's going on with your child on the other side. You'll feel when you wake up in the morning, you can often feel, oh, I got an answer. Or it may come 2 or 3 days later in a sign, not something you're expecting, but some way in which that energy from the other side has connected with you. So there's a relationship in understanding what your child taught you when they had a physical presence in your body, in their body, and what they're trying to teach you on the other side. You have that same level of soul connection. It's about admitting it, embracing it, and working to understand how that energy, which carries information, is received by you. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I know we'll get to questions, and Earl and I love questions because I think questions bring forward things that we're not thinking to talk about. But before we get there, I have the sense that some of you, maybe there's been a question that you've already written, someone's written about, asking Earl and me, how did we figure out that Adam, our son on the other side, how did we figure out that Adam is the soul of my paternal grandfather? And when this happened, I sort of kind of like, duh, why didn't I think about this before? But in the last couple of years, sometime in the last couple of years, I was chatting with Earl, and all of a sudden I thought about the fact that my grandfather passed on the 24th of April. Adam, obviously, our second child, Adam, our child on the other side, was born and passed on the 24th of April. Different years, but it was all the same date. So what I did is I asked, Earl and I both know of more than one of our guides on the other side. So I asked one of my main guides, and not Adam. And so I said, "So what's the meaning of April 24th and April 24th?" And actually, my guide, again, not Adam, my guide said, "Linda, what do you think?" And I mean, I realized it, this was years and years after my grandfather passed and after Adam was born and passed. And it was like, oh, yeah, are they the same soul? And our guide verified that, yes, in fact, they're the same soul. So obviously, pay attention to dates, numbers, all those indications that there's some connection, there's a message that is trying to come through to you, and it's going to show up. And I'm sure a lot of you are like this, Earl and I are like this too, where there are characteristic numbers that we see on the clock, that we see on license plates. And it's like, for Earl and me both, for many years, it's been ones and fours and ones and fours and ones and fours. And so that's almost like a kind of a bell ringing, trying to get your attention. And what's the meaning? So that's how we figured out that Adam is the same soul as my father's father. So I'm hoping.
It's fascinating. I have to just break in, first of
Oh,
all,
that's fine. Fine.
because first of all, I just think that it's so exciting that you not only are responsible for so many past life regressions for so many different people. So you've seen these kinds of things happen already in people who have been with you, but also that you teach this and between lives regressions as well to others to be able to learn how to have these experiences and learn a little bit more about where we're from and why we're here. But I just have to say very quickly that when you said April 24th, it's so funny because just today, Michael was on the phone. It's his birthday on the 24th of April as well. And he was reserving to go to the Galapagos Islands on the 24th. So I feel that in our meetings, we have so many synchronicities like this that happen. And I think that it's the kids who are doing it. I think that they do these things to be able to show all of us how interconnected all of us are. And we are. We're all, every single one of us is part of the same energy and the same beautiful place that we've come from that is home for all of us, where our kids are right now, and we're still in school and we're learning so much from people like you and then also from our kids. But I didn't want to interrupt too long. I just thought, my goodness, this is so amazing. And it does happen very frequently on these meetings that we have those numbers that that are exactly the same for some reason. But it's exciting to know that Adam and Michael and your grandfather all share a birthday.
Well, and Elizabeth, there are no accidents. And so that could mean all kinds of things. I mean, we find how interconnected we all are, and sometimes with someone that we would think, well, there's no soul connection, there's no past life connection, or something like that, and then suddenly these indications show up, and they're so uncanny. But the more uncanny they are, I think about things, numbers fascinate me. I think about different overlaps. Our our daughter-in-law's birthday is the 22nd of September, and our, let's see if I can make this clear for everybody. Our daughter-in-law's birthday is the 22nd of September. Our son-in-law's mother, when she was on this side, her birthday is the 22nd of September. And what that tends to show is that there have been past lives shared by people that are part of an extended family that you wouldn't even think about. So numbers tell us a lot. Yeah.
I think one of the things too is that those of us in human bodies have amazing capabilities with regard to the transfer of knowledge through energy. We often tend to think, oh, wow, what an amazing medium. What she can or he can connect with. And it is amazing when you experience that, someone connecting with your loved one. I think based on Linda's experience, my experience, the clients we work with, many of us have that ability. But we need to trust that we have that ability, and we need to trust the information that's coming through from our guides, our child on the other side, that it's real, that the information, no matter how you're receiving it, whether it's through your intuitive abilities, through some sensory way, that it's real and not made up. And the more you embrace it, the more you believe it, trust it, know it, the clearer the communication becomes. And the more frequent it comes. Because our loved ones on the other side, they know how to communicate with us. And they're willing, and they can't wait to do that. It's our density, our reluctance to embrace it, our fear that we might be wrong, or whatever it is in our bodies that prevents us from taking in those messages that our children on the other side are teaching us, what they want us to know about what's going on with them, what they're doing, how they're contributing. All of that is available if you work at communicating and trusting the connection that's there. But it is about belief. It is about accepting that you have those capabilities. And not everybody can be a medium or channeler, a psychic, and so forth. But most of us can communicate with our loved ones on the other side because we share that energy, we share that connection. And I think it's important to really believe, and you can work on that. That's a skill that you can develop. I've really learned that over the years.
So I know, I mean, Earl and I could talk on and about a lot of things, but there's so often, Elizabeth, and I'm not looking at the chat box, but I know that there are often questions and then we don't get to everybody's questions. So it's perfectly fine if you want to segue into
Well,
questions.
I would love to just say that back when we were talking about the April 24th, Heidi is saying my beloved son Corbin's birthday is April 24th. And then Kit is saying I married my children's father on April 24th. And I just wanted to say that my grandfather's birthday is also the April 24th, just to make it a little bit more amazing. But Kim is saying something that's rather beautiful. She's talking about the announcement for this meeting that she read this afternoon. My son's anniversary is coming up on, I guess, February 18th. 9 years. I have The Journey of Souls by Michael Newton on my bookshelf, and I've had it for 9 years but never read it. I decided to read it today, and then within an hour, I see the HPH email invite for today. and that you are trained by Michael Newton. I also had taken down a book about how to speak Russian that I gave to Zach when he was 11 because he was obsessed about World War I and all things Russian. The inscription I read today that I wrote to him on this book on Christmas of 2009, which is actually the angel date of both Carly and Morgan, was, excuse me, of Morgan, not Carly, was Zachary, you learn first and then you teach me. And the title of tonight's session is Teaching from Our Children, No Coincidences. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
So I think that it's fascinating that she gave this book to him when he was 11 and said, "Okay, you learn how to speak Russian and then you can teach us." I know that our kids teach us so many things, and so Lisa's saying we are all in the right place, and I agree. And I also think that, again, we were talking about this right before the meeting. I have a beautiful new granddaughter who's only 2 weeks old, but every time that she wakes up, she looks around and she looks so wise. I keep saying that she has the wisdom of the world in her eyes, and I know that we think of all babies as having this incredible wisdom. They do, because they know so much more than we do. And I know that you wanted to maybe discuss that, Linda, just a little bit about these incredible souls who are arriving here, probably wondering why they ever left where they came from, but they are so much wiser than we are.
Yeah, and that's another sort of piece of thinking about using intuition. So, Elizabeth, we were chatting about this before we started tonight, and looking at, I mean, not just a 2 week old, but certainly, a baby, let's just say less than 6 months old, and sometimes they look like they're somewhere else. Sometimes they obviously can't speak yet, and sometimes they look so wise, or they look at you with a particular kind of expression. Well, and maybe most of you have thought about this, but obviously within that first year or so of life, the the soul energy, I could talk about that too, when the soul energy enters the body in the developmental stages. But within that first year of life, when that child, is just learning how to communicate in any way, they're uh, almost closer to being on the other side than being here, because they haven't been here very long. And it's the classic thing, just a very quick personal story that goes back a lot of years, many years back. A great niece of Earl's and mine, this is on Earl's side of the family. This great niece, I don't know, maybe she was 3 years old, 4 years old.
Yeah,
Uh,
something like that.
yeah, she was born after Earl's dad passed, and so she never met Earl's father. And but our niece, her mother, the great niece's mother, contacted us again. This is years back, and said, "You won't believe this, but I have to tell you what happened." So she said, "My daughter woke up from a nap, and my daughter said, not to make this confusing, the great niece said to our niece, you know, Mommy, I talked to, and maybe Earl can remember, it wasn't Grandpa. Do you remember what
Yeah, no, it was.
Grandpa Earl. It was
Yeah,
Grandpa Earl. Yeah,
working in the garden.
that's right. She said, well, I woke up, she woke up and the little girl said to her mommy, well, I just talked to Grandpa Earl. And then she started describing my father-in-law, both some physical description, but she also started describing some of his favorite activities. And a lot of it included he was very much into planting and gardens and that sort of thing. And I'm convinced she had had a dream when she was asleep about my father-in-law, and that, and it. I'm convinced it wasn't just a dream. It was a communication going on between our great niece and my father-in-law. And so those kinds of things, I mean, I always love the statement, you can't make this stuff up because you can't make this stuff up. Yeah.
Well, there's so many wonderful things being written in the chat box. Jillian is saying that her daughter would have been 2 years old today, so she is 2 years old today. She was just 5 months old when she passed to SIDS. I joined this call once before, and you told me that she was an old soul with the signs that she sends to her. She is still sending her signs. Her birthday was Friday, and she certainly did. And then she says, I felt like I had to join tonight because it is her birthday. And so I just was telling her happy birthday to her beautiful daughter. And I don't know if you guys have something to say about that, but there is a question in the chat box as well. So first of all, Jillian, welcome. And again, happy birthday to your daughter. And I know that she's with you and that she is sending you signs. And then Brenda has a question. Can I read the question for you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. A question is, so she's asking about reincarnation. If her child reincarnates again, will we still be able to connect with our children if they reincarnate? And or could we possibly find them again on Earth, born into another body? Maybe part of our soul is always together with our loved ones on the other side, and there's another part of us that reincarnates into physical form for each lifetime. Just wondering what your thoughts are. That's exactly what I've always heard, that we have our soul on the other side. We have small parts of our soul that come here. But maybe you could elaborate on that question.
I mean, quite honestly, that's easy to answer having guided regression for so many years. So when we get ready to incarnate, um, and we could go into this in a lot of detail, but when we get ready to incarnate, there's a plan put in place, and there are soul agreements made on the other side. It's if we think about our child, before we come into body, there are agreements. Who will be the father? Um, who will be the mother? Who will be the grandparents? Those agreements are made. But to answer directly, Elizabeth, this question, when when we come into body, we bring a holographic slice, if you will, a holographic. I always think about it, so think about an old-fashioned pie. When we get ready to incarnate, we bring, just like you would cut a slice out of a traditional pie, we bring a slice of our soul pie, so to speak, into our body, but that soul pie is holographic. So that slice, just like any kind of a pie, the contents of that one slice is going to taste like or be the same as the content of the rest of the pie. The soul energy we don't bring into body is our higher self. So we are never incarnate without having a higher self. And the reason we don't ever bring 100% of our soul energy into our human body is, and I've heard this over and over and over in regression, is that it would blow the circuits of the human body. So that we always bring, just think of it as a percentage. On average, when a child is born, they bring anywhere from about 15% of their soul energy to maybe as much as 35 or 40%. The rest is our higher self that remains on the other side. And that's why it doesn't matter whether your child has passed or not. When we transition to the other side, there's always, even if our child has reincarnated, there's always soul energy to meet us, to support us, to guide us across the veil.
Beautiful. I love that. And it's always so much fun to hear that every time that you say that we're just a small part of this beautiful soul that we are, that exists on the other side. So from what I've understood, when our child transitioned, they transitioned and saw us there immediately. They don't have to wait for us to get there, but they are still guiding us and helping us while we're here because they know that this is our school and that they're home, that they've done what they needed to. So it's so much easier to understand that they are so filled with they have so many people around them helping them and guiding them, and that everything is the way that as it should be. It's not something that happened randomly. And in fact, we have a question here from Maria asking, question for either Drs. Backman. Do souls travel together as a group and plan lives together, possibly in different roles, and continue to evolve? And so I know that you've explained this in the past, but maybe you could just explain this to the people who are here so that they get a better understanding of this, and to Maria as well.
Do you want to take that? I mean, I can certainly answer that, but I bet
Yeah, the
Earl can
answer
answer that too.
the answer is yes. We know a number of members of our family that are in our same soul group that travel, and we've had past lives with them. So yes, that indeed does happen. There's a more detailed answer to that too. I don't know how far down that road we want to walk, but in large part for many of us who are what Linda would call earth-based souls, yes, we do travel in groups. We know, for instance, a number of members of our family that are part of our soul group that we've had lifetimes with previously. We're blessed to know a lot of those things about our family members and who they've been in other lives and how they relate to us. That's been an accumulation of knowledge over many years. But go ahead on.
Yeah, I was just going to add one more quick piece in that I think is really important, and then I know there's more questions popping up. Um, uh, for everybody who's thinking about, and we're talking about what we call, I like to call it soul pod, that we have a soul pod. Two quick comments about that. One is in your soul pod may be family members of your spouse, could be family members of your daughter-in-law or son-in-law, but also in that soul pod could be the soul of a best friend, could be the soul of a mentor, the soul of your favorite neighbor. It isn't just blood, it's not just like Linda's soul pod are in fact, Earl and I happen to be in the same pod. That doesn't always happen. In our pod is one of my grandfathers and one of Earl's grandfathers. So that kind of thing does happen.
Those are beautiful answers. Thank you so much. And gosh, there's so many wonderful questions. Yen is saying, I truly hope that we get to decide if we want to return someday, because this one life has already been more than enough for my soul. And Yen is actually one of our affiliate leaders, so she is really working hard to help as many people as she can while she's here. And I know it's not easy, but she's Mia's beautiful mom. And do you have an answer for that? Is it possible to decide that this is enough?
I mean, that's a good question. And honestly, I've been asked that question, numerous times. So what happens, and this is always fun because the questions are awesome questions. What happens is when we're on this side of life, then our vantage point is different. It's like, oh, gee, I've had maybe certain people cross over. I've had someone in my life that's had a very serious illness. I've had struggle financially, or, whatever it might be. That's not the vantage point that let's just use our children as the best example. That's not the way we feel when we cross over. So I mean, I'll give you just I don't know, you just give a very quick example of Earl and I did a program with someone last evening that I guided in regression. So in the regression of this man, trying to make this short, in the regression for this man, I guide him into past life. And probably most of you know, regression means I'm not giving the information to the client is giving the information to me. So in this past life, to make a very long story short, the client is a man in current life and is a man, sort of a leader uh, thousands of years ago, and there is there in the past life there is a group of people with a different leader, and this group of people with this leader are harming the village of the client in the past life. And so, long story short, my client in the past life goes and finds this leader who's causing horrible harm to the village. And in the past life, my client, in fact, takes the life of this leader. When the client, and this is part of the type of regression that I guide, when the client then finishes the past life and crosses over in the regression and connects to their soul level, the client is feeling guilty for having done what he did in the past life. A spiritual guide comes forward, which virtually always happens in this type of regression, and the guide says, no, you need to let yourself off the hook. You had no choice in order to protect your people and protect your village. You had to make that decision to take that step. We do not hold you at fault. You are not, going to, I mean, punishment is a human thought and not a spiritual action. And so let yourself off the hook. That was not wrong action. So my point is that the vision, the perspective from the other side is not from this, what we often see on this side. There are times when we can say, if we've reached a certain level of evolution, I can choose whether to come back into body or not. That does happen. But the other side's vision, that's why we need to talk to our children, because they can share such wisdom with us from the other side.
That was a beautiful answer. And we don't have a lot of time, but we have a question that I know that a lot of our parents are asking, which is why so many children are passing of drugs and suicide these days. Could one of you maybe address that question?
You want, I'm letting Earl decide. I can answer that, but
I'll let you take that one.
okay. Okay. Well, it's a good question. And obviously, well, let me say some things about Earth. Um, there's a lot of learning going on Earth. There's a lot of making choices on Earth in order to advance humanity. And so we see some of this. There are times when our children are at the soul. So when our child is in body, at times they're making soul agreements to aid humanity, to aid the needed expansion, we might say, of the human perspective of life, which again takes me back to why I love HPH, is because HPH is all about, just to put it in simple terms, there is no death. So again, I think we have to be careful about, I mean, I'll use an everyday word, and that would be judging. I think we have to be very careful about judging the actions of anyone, no matter how old they are, of what they're doing in terms of drugs, what they're doing in terms of, and I know this is an aspect of discussion and support for HPH that, why do we not look uh, with a negative light on if and when someone takes their life? It's because that's not appropriate. That's the human perspective, but that's not the soul perspective. So humanity is working hard to evolve. I think we are evolving. Sometimes our children have agreed to aid the evolution of humanity.
I think also, unbeknownst to us, because we're not privileged to that information, that our children make agreements at the soul level when they come into body. That's an agreement in your consciousness as a parent you're not aware of. And then sometimes that is to be here for a limited amount of time to teach you, to learn from you, and then to leave. It was a hard lesson when our son was born and died to realize that he did that for a teaching moment for us, a major transformation it caused us to make. And so I think partly what is happening, that many of our children are very advanced souls. They come to help, to teach, to learn, and the timetable that they're with us is not within our purview to know and to affect. And it's like, it is the way it is. We don't, it's not, we have to like it. And so we've learned, and I've learned with our work, is you treasure every moment. From the minute they take their first breath, you treasure that. And even the challenges that you have as they grow up, going through adolescence, all the stages they go, when they're with you, it's important to say, this moment is important. Because you don't know the future. We don't know our future. And so I think that's one of the ways we need to look at. Our children often leave because it's time for them to leave. We don't get a vote. And that's hard. I mean, as a parent, that's hard to say, well, I didn't make that agreement. And we have to come to terms with that. But it's teaching, and it's often a limited time. And we learn from that. And again, going back to our topic, our children on the other side continue to teach us. If we welcome the lessons, if we welcome the content, if we welcome the energy.
Beautiful. Yes, I agree 100%. I think that what Karen has written is also beautiful. Having read a couple of Michael Newton's books prior to my son's illness, the concept that we'd all planned aspects of his passing before any of us came into this life was a real comfort. And you have so many hearts going up, both of you, because of that answer. So thank you so much. But it's true that it is a comfort. It makes everything feel less random, and it makes us cherish every single day. But it also allows us to live this life in love and to realize that all we need to do is just help each other get through this life and to learn as much as we can while we're here. And it's always so much fun to spend time with both of you. Do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to say? And of course, we'll have to have you back again because there are more questions in the chat box, but we'll address those another time. But would you like to leave us with some words of wisdom?
Go for it, Lynn.
I think the words of wisdom, if they are wisdom, would be, take time tonight before you go to bed, everybody, and ask your child or children. I realize there are some of you who may have more than one child on the other side. Um, Ask your kiddos, what do you want to share with me before this day is over? What kernel of wisdom, what, anything, it doesn't matter what it is. How are you? What are you doing? What advice do you want to give me? Um, Ask your child or children. Earl and I will do the same with Adam, what they wish to share with us, and trust what comes forward.
And thank you all for being here. Thank you all. It's very meaningful to us, and we love each and every one of your soul energies. And we want to continue to very much assist and contribute as we can.
It's so wonderful. Well, we have so many thank yous in the chat box, and of course, so many hearts that are coming up. I think that it's important for everyone to understand that, again, Drs. Earl and Linda Backman, in spite of the fact that they are very, very learned and they have so much wisdom to add to this, the biggest thing about their journey that helps them to understand us is that they are Shining Light parents. And so we truly appreciate having Shining Light parents on here with us to let us know how they've navigated this journey. The passing of Adam certainly changed your lives, and you both went into service to others after his passing. And I know that that's something that a lot of us want to do. We don't have to go into service for others, but it is nice to be able to help each other as we go down this path to healing. And Irene, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to say thank you. It's so nice to just be with you both, and your energy is so wonderful. And to get out of our heads and out of our humanness and into our souls is it's just very refreshing, and it's so uplifting. That's why we're here for love, and we're going to be with our kids in no time.
Yeah.
We'll be back home.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
We always
Yeah.
ask everybody to unmute and say thank you if you'd like to, and good evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.